Welcome to Conversations at the Effie, located here on the unceded territory at the Kamloops at the Effie Arts Collective, where we talk to interesting people in the community of Kamloops and see what they're up to. Today I have with me Slum Glutton, hip-hop artist. Slum Glutton, where did your name come from?
Oh man, I'm glad you asked me that. Okay, so so first of all, when I started rapping, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to have a name. And I didn't know what to name myself. And you know, I was listening to this artist, and he had you got artists out there like Marilyn Manson, who's like kind of combined two names of like famous people, and this artist had done that, and it was like his favorite serial killer and his favorite horror producer, a horror movie like director. So I was like, I was kind of like, and then there's a few artists that have done that, right? And so I was trying to come up with something that I thought would be interesting and something that was also personal, right? So when I was, so I also really love to cook. And when I was really young, like, you know, 7 years old, I started cooking and like just coming up with all sorts of crazy concoctions in the kitchen. And the one thing that I'd always do was I would take like last night's leftovers and like chop it up and like chop up some fresh stuff and like, you know, and then mix it all together and fry it up and like put cheese on it or put sauce on it and then just have this like, you know, this goulash of food. And my mom once said to me, you know, that's called Slum Glutton. That's what she told me, and that's your grandfather's favorite food. So I was like, oh, okay, and so I always just said, oh, I'm gonna make some Slum Glutton. So Slum Glutton is like is basically just like another word for like a goulash or something like that, right? Just like a bunch of mixture, like a cheap stew. It was actually first referenced in like a book, I think Mark Twain, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it's Mark Twain wrote about it, and it was like a washy beverage, something like a swish or something, like a home brew or something like that. And they call it Slum Glutton, and then it was like Slum Glutton, and then it kind of turned into like a stew or like a goulash, right? So, and I was thinking I was gonna call myself Slum Glutton, and then I kind of incorporated that what those other artists did, and that was I also problem with overeating, and so gluttony was like one of my deadly sins. So you know, I was like Slum Glutton, and I just wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I was like, that actually looks pretty good. So you know, and away I went with it, and it's kind of suited me throughout the years, you know, for who I am, and you know, and it goes back to my childhood, and it kind of connects to who I am as a person and some, you know, issues I have, and yeah, so that's where it came from.
Hip hop is really an urban genre, but yet it seems very, very popular as well in small towns, small communities.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Why do you think there's that connection?
Because I think that, I'll put it this way. So when I started listening to hip hop, I was like 7 years old. I lived in Nelson, and at that point in time, I listened to like pop music. Like I come from like the Backstreet Boys generation. You know, I know I don't look like it, but you know. So when I was like 6 and 7, Backstreet Boys, Spice Girls, and like my sister gave me a salt and pepper tape. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And it was something different than what I was being fed to in the mainstream media, right? And it kind of made me feel cool. I kind of like, you know, a bounce to it. And then fast forward maybe like, you know, about a year later, right before I moved to the coast, a babysitter that played me Wu-Tang Clan 36 Chambers. Now it's like, it was hardcore, and it was like I threw out all my other CDs after that. Like it was over. And growing up, like I found out that my life wasn't as the same as the people that on these records, like the artists. Like they're coming from these, like, you know, the ghettos and like hard lives and stuff like that. But I really related to a lot of it because I lived with my mom, a single mom. My father wasn't around at the beginning of my life. And we didn't make a lot of money. There was times where we had to go, like when I was really young, I know we had to go like on like, you know, social assistance. We always got by. My mom worked off, and like we weren't like super poor or nothing, but we were riding that poverty line. So when I hear the artists talking about, you know, poverty or not having a father around growing up, and and then when I got a little older, violence and partying and using and, you know, getting stoned, smoking dope, I think that's what attracted me to it, because I felt like I could relate to it in my own way, you know. And once I got older, I realized that the situations that they're coming from are a lot worse than what I came from. But there are some parallels that I kind of held on to that made me feel like it was okay to be where I was at.
What led you to come to Kamloops?
To Kamloops, so I became really addicted to narcotics. It pretty much ruled my whole life. I started using at about 11 years old. Probably by the time I was 14, I started using every day. And when I was about, I guess 28, 29, my best friend passed away. And it just gave me some perspective on life. And I think up until that point, I was actually really didn't care whether I lived or died, because I just really couldn't get out of that circle of addiction. And I just felt trapped, and I felt hopeless, really. And I just kind of felt like that's the way I was supposed to live. And so when my best friend passed away, it kind of gave me some perspective, and I just got the will to live. I just said, you know what, I don't want to live like this no more. I didn't know how or what I was gonna do, but I knew that I wanted to do something. So I checked into a treatment center in Abbotsford for 90 days, and when I was in treatment, they basically, my counselors were like, you need to do second stage housing. You know, don't go back to where you were living. Don't go back to the neighborhood you were from. And it's really important that you get some sort of like help along the way. And then I was like, I didn't really want to do that. So I had some family that was living up here that was actually really safe to live with, my mom and some people close by. So that's why I moved here after I went to treatment, because I wanted to kind of start fresh, and I didn't really want to I went to treatment in Abbotsford, and I was actually looking at their second stage houses, and they looked pretty rough. You know, like a lot of people going back out, getting loaded. I know guys were coming back from relapsing and going back to treatment after their second stage house. So whether it was the second stage program's fault, probably not. But I knew that I kind of wanted to get away from that scene, right? So I moved here to Kamloops and started fresh. Yeah.
Do you find there's a lot of support in Kamloops to help your recovery?
Kamloops is a huge support network for recovery people. Definitely. That's one of the reasons why I stayed here.
Is it a lot of structured support, or do you think it's a lot of, structured by government-funded support, or do you think it's more community-driven?
Community. 100% community. I chose different ways to go through my recovery than like government and stuff like that, like post treatment and all that stuff. But there is a huge community for recovery. A lot of people that stay close together for people who are in sobriety, right? So unfortunately, you know, recovery is for people who want it, not for people who need it. So if you're not getting connected to the community on, like, I would say, on a daily basis, your chances, I'd say, if I wasn't getting connected to the recovery community on a daily basis in one way or the other, I would have next to no chance of staying sober. And a lot of people do the 30-day rinse cycle treatment, and they're back on the streets, back to their old friends, back to, or, you know, whatever, right? And I see a lot of perpetual getting clean, going back out, people dying, so, yeah.
Do you see the same people supporting your hip hop that are supporting your recovery?
To a certain extent, yeah. I think because the music I've been making most recently is directly tied into my growth as a human since I got sober and clean, right? Because it's like, I think, you know, the drugs and alcohol were just like a symptom to a much bigger problem that was inside of me. So once I stopped getting loaded and stopped getting high and all that stuff, the problems didn't go away. I got to find new ways of dealing with them, right? Instead of getting high and drunk and stuff like that, right?
What do you remember more clearer? Do you remember the first time you picked up a mic or picked up a substance? Which is more clear in your mind?
Man, I don't know. I think the mic. Yeah, for sure. I remember the first time I picked up a mic, like actually performed on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was loaded out of my mind. Go figure, right? Yeah, I was at the Olympia Pizza in Surrey. A lot of people cut their teeth in that place. Like that was like a place where a lot of artists got their start. Yeah, I had half my hometown was there watching me, and yeah, it was pretty intense. It wasn't what I expected, and definitely a memorable moment. Even though I don't remember anything because I was so out of it, but I just remember getting up there and being real scared actually, because I had been rapping for a couple of years, kind of just like on and off, and then getting up there in into it was just like, oh fuck, I'm really doing this, right? Like people cheering for you and stuff, right? But yeah, it was intense.
What made you go up the first time? Did you have something to prove to yourself, to the audience, or did you have something to say?
Back then, my music was I used to rap about doing drugs and how I was living, and I kind of like, and there was probably a lot of fake bravado in there too as well. Like I listened to really violent hip hop growing up, like underground, like violent stuff, and that's really where I first I started kind of writing while I was listening to that music. So there was like a lot of it was talking about my addiction, but it was almost glorifying it. So I think for the most part I got up there to that's a good question. I don't really know why I got up there, but I know when I started writing, it was a release for me, because I kind of knew at that point that I wasn't really living right. So maybe the addiction part of me was kind of glorifying it through my writing. And then I had a friend that was like, I never wanted to show anybody what I was writing, and he was like, no, you gotta show people that. That's really awesome. And then that led to someone like inviting me to their house to record in their closet. And then people were like, oh, that's crazy. And I was just like, whoa. And then it took me a while to get a show because I wasn't really looking to do it. And I was really trapped in my addiction, moving around. I actually moved out to Vernon and then to Kamloops. And then I went back to the coast and I got my first show. So I think something to prove, for sure, to prove that I had some talent, or to prove that I could get up there and do it, because I was so afraid to do so, yeah.
Were you afraid going into recovery that you were going to lose your creative side?
Oh, 100%, because that's how it started, was me writing when I was high. And I would just sit there and I'd write by myself, like all isolated and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I've tried to quit rapping and like making like music so many times. And one of the times is when I got out of treatment and I moved to Kamloops, and I'm like, I'm never going to do that. Like, I'm never going to be able to write again. And because like I was still thawing out right in my head, and nothing felt right. And like, what was I going to write about? Because I wasn't going to write about what I used to write about, and I don't even know what I'm doing now. So it took a little bit for me to actually write. But I did a show, and it was at the Alano Club. It's not open anymore. We had a small show there, and a lot of people from the recovery community was there, and I think there was 3 acts. It was just something really small, and I performed for the first time sober, and I was like, oh, it wasn't so bad, but I was like, after that I was not feeling writing, so like I was like, oh, not really feeling it, and then we had another show at the Alano Club, but it was actually a show. So the Brothers Grimm, shout out to them, they were coming through on their tour, and they stopped here and did a show on their tour for the Beverly Boys album, and I was going to perform there and open up, and I wasn't going to go because I just like, I've never like flaked out on a show even when I was in addiction, but I was just like, you know, and I'm just not into to this no more. And I just dragged myself down there at the last minute, and it was like this huge experience. It was almost like experiencing hip hop all over again. Like they had graffiti artists all set up in one room with all these paintings that they did, and they were raffling them off. They came with like a bunch of opening acts that were just amazing, and they were like super cool people. Like they came up to me and they're like, "I really liked your set," because I did perform, and you know, we swapped each other's like Instagrams and stuff like that, and it was just like I felt the community of hip hop. And then the main act came on, which was the Brothers Grimm, and they just annihilated it, and I was just like, whoa. And I just remember sitting there, and I really think there's like 3 people left by the time, 3 like people that were like watching it, and me, and then all the other artists. And I was just sitting there like, man, you know, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, even if this is all it is, even if it's just me doing shows in little rooms with 4 people watching, that's what I want to do with my life, you know? So, yeah.
How big is the hip hop community in Kamloops? Would we be surprised to find out how big it is, or would we be surprised to see how small it is?
It's pretty small, but they're a pretty close community. So I moved here and I didn't know anybody, but they all kind of grew up together. There's so if you go to like Williams Lake, 100 Mile, all the surrounding areas, there's quite a few artists that have been doing it for a long time. But now the younger generation, you know, like the Lost Boys, Young Flux, guys that we seen last night, that's a lot bigger. That's coming where like I see them, they have a bigger community, and it's really nice to see them coming out and, you know, doing shows with the older generation and stuff like that. And I've gone to Rap Loops a couple times and seen quite a bit of people show up for the shows. And but I think it's a bigger town for this area, but it's kind of a small community. And I'd like to see more people get involved.
Of course, the pandemic kind of drove everybody into their homes for the longest time. Do you think that that's really helped develop some artists where they were forced into their rooms to just record by themselves?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think they're developing their sound. The cool thing about music right now is it's got no boundaries, especially even the hip hop, rap, whatever you want to call it now, is much more broad. You know, like the hyper pop and the new wave and all that stuff, right? Like it's the punk scene is it's all kind of starting to just develop all these subgenres, but it's causing these people to kind of be so creative. It's unique, right? It's not the same thing, you know, and I really enjoy that. Like when I go to a restaurant or like a buffet or something, I don't just load up all on one food. I want to get a little bit of everything. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think Kamloops could support shows that have multitudes of different genres?
Yeah, I think it would. I think we just did last night, really. You know, there was more than 3 sounds I heard last night that were, you know, definitely.
What does Kamloops have as an artist for you right now that you don't think you could get somewhere else?
As an artist, I don't know. I'd like to see more stuff for artists around here. And I think even prior to COVID, I noticed that it was lacking in a lot of things for artists. So venues, right? I'd like them to be more available and more, I guess more just the venues and promoters and people putting stuff together, right? And getting something going, because it's kind of, even before COVID, it was really touch and go.
A lot of people, you know, they're at home, they watch Netflix and YouTube and get a lot of their entertainment through streaming services now. And they'll come out for big names. Why should they come out for somebody that they don't know?
Because you never know what you're going to find. I think one of the biggest gifts I got from in recovery is being open-minded and finding and that leading to new experiences. So, you know, just me coming here last night and sitting down, I got here to make sure I watched every opening act, you know, and there was some stuff that I was like, wow, and I would have never ever done that prior. Like, you know, 10 years ago, I would have never done that. I would have been like just very shut off and just waiting for my turn. And so, I mean, and you never know what it's gonna, if you can support an artist, that helps them a lot too, right? Even just having someone in the crowd, an extra body in the crowd, that just helps them a lot. And if you can help someone just by your presence, I mean, that's a pretty cheap way to be helpful, right?
Where's the best place to find your music?
Find my music? Spotify, YouTube. I actually do a lot of my. I'm kind of stubborn. I do all my most of my promotion on my personal Facebook page, and that's Riley Jones, RILEYJONES, and my Instagram is slum_glutton, and I try to use that more too as well lately. But yeah, all the streaming platforms. I just started doing this. It's kind of like a duo with me and a local producer, Bez Beats. We call ourselves the Grown Ups, and that's pretty much got most of my attention right now. It's linked to all my other platforms as well, so it's on Slum Glutton. But yeah, if you see the Grown Ups, that's also me. I do all the writing and the vocals, and he does all the engineering and the producing, and it's just been a really real productive like relationship.
It seems like a lot of musicians in Kamloops have to really diversify. They have their fingers in like everything. Like to find a drummer in town that's not in 6 bands is very rare. Yeah. Do you spread yourself out everywhere as well?
I don't know. I think for me, as a rapper, it's almost a little bit different. Like, so prior to me working with Bez, I had issues affording proper engineering for my music, and I could afford to pay for production, but it wasn't always really what I wanted to get. But then, like, spending the money on engineering, that's when you're a rapper, that's really what you want to put your money, some of your money into. You want to have a good sound quality, and if it's really amateur, sometimes it doesn't sound that good. And I've actually put out some music where I look back now and I'm like, oh, this sounds terrible, but I only had $50 to spend on a mix or whatever, right? Collaborating with other artists, like finding a team, right? So I'm building a team with Bez right now. It's just me and him, right? But it's been really useful because now I can just focus on what I'm good at. So when I met Bez, I was releasing my first album, was Slum's Kitchen, and I was gonna mix some stuff. So I had been learning how to mix, trying to get my fingers on that because I was so sick of paying for it and not being able to even pay for the quality you want because you can't afford it. So I started learning how to do it, and I sent it to him, and he's like, oh, that sounds pretty good. He said, do you mind if I take a crack at it? I'm like, yeah, sure. And what he sent back was like 1,000,000 times better than me, and I was like, oh man. And he just ended up doing a few songs with me for free, and I was like, oh man, thank you so much. And he was like, yeah, no problem. And then we decided that we were gonna work together on a project. So I try not to spread myself too thin because I just like to focus on what I'm good at. Yeah.
Do you approach your hip hop? Are you doing this for selfish reasons? Do you just do this for yourself, or are you trying to, are you trying to give something to the public, or are you just doing this for your own reasons?
Oh man, I'm 100% doing this for the community. And especially for people that are struggling, right? Like, so this whole project that I just released with Bez, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, it was like, every song was like something that I've gone through personally, like from the beginning to end. And I touch on a lot about recovery and my faith, mental health issues, eating disorders, and that's very, very personal. And just even having a couple people just hit me up and said, this song helped me. I really, really related to it. I was going through a hard time, I put it on. So if I'm just like completely vulnerable and honest, and I can just put something into a song that is just so true to what I'm going through and who I am, and even one person, if one person can pick up on that and be like, that helped me, that's 100% why I do it. And I can't stop doing it, because even if I stop performing and stop recording, I'm going to be writing. I just know I am. I've tried it before, right? Like I said, I tried to quit, and okay, we were talking about it last night after the show. I was like, okay, I'm just going to write a song, but I'm not going to record it. And then once you write the song, you're like, well, I might as well record it. And then once you record it, someone's like, oh, hey, there's a show next week. Do you want to? Well, I might as well go. I got some new stuff. I might as well go. And then you're back in like that feeling when you get on the stage. And I've always wanted to be in entertainment. And that's kind of really what I want to get into. Is just doing more shows, because I haven't done a lot of shows, like a large number of them. So that's one thing that I think is good to help people with, because they need to blow off steam, right? Like I used to be a drug addict, so I mean I was never blowing off steam when I went out and had a few drinks and when, like, you know what I mean? Like I was just getting just as high as I could to like escape from my problems, right? But people like to go out and blow off steam after a hard week's of work, and if I can entertain them on a Friday, and like, you know, they can go home feeling really good, then I did my job, right?
Can you still perform your old material that you wrote when you were in the throes of drug addiction?
I don't know. Do I perform any songs? I don't perform any of the songs before. I think I only had like 3 or 4 songs that were like really like set worthy, and yeah, they're so. Number one, I think they're not very well written, and number 2, they're just not who I am at all. Like I couldn't even front and come up there. So I like, you know what I mean? I think I don't think I would be doing it anyway. I think artists are always their own worst critic. Like. This is the first time with this, the Grown Ups album, where I was like, I love every song I put on this album, and like I have no regrets, and it's crazy. Like and even with the production and the engineering, I was like, it's perfect. Like, you know, and I've never, every other project I've ever worked on, I've always like instantly hated it. So yeah, even if I wasn't, I never got sober and clean, I probably wouldn't be performing that. But I definitely also wouldn't do it just because I don't like it when artists like front, right? When they're fake, you know, like whatever. I get it. Like I don't like rappers that do gun bars. I'm like, you don't have a gun though, man, and it drives me nuts. But like it's guys can flip it as a metaphor. Guys could just be like just talking shit, right? So it's okay. I know a lot of guys that do that. Battle rap is big for that, and then it's like okay, but then. For me, it has to be authentic. Like everything I say when I come up here is really who I am right now, in the moment. So I think, yeah.
Are you being recognized around Kamloops now?
No, not really. Not as an artist.
No.
No. I think, well, in a little bit. So I also do this thing because I love cooking, and I do this thing called Slum's Flavor Fiends. And if you're on Facebook, it's a group. And you just take pictures of your food and you post it. And we grew it. It's a really good community. We grew it like there's like 3,000 members, and it's just we do like contests and stuff like that. And I've gotten noticed for that a couple times, and like it's got my name in it, so people know I'm a rapper. I think yeah. So yeah, no, I don't get noticed a whole lot.
I really like the first time I heard about you was through sharing on social media, and I didn't even know if it was real. It seemed it was almost a meme, and it was unbelievable to understand that there was even a rapper like yourself in Kamloops. Are you worried about how social media can portray you in some way that you're not?
No. People are going to do that anyway. I'm not worried about it. stay true to myself, and if people are gonna perceive it, people are gonna people's perceptions are like, you have everyone in one room, and they're gonna look at something, and they're all gonna have a different perspective, right? I think the way I am, like, I'm a big guy, the way I look. If you don't talk to me and you don't know anything about me, you might think I'm a certain way. But if you even talk to me for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you're gonna know that that's not who I am. So if you're just looking on the surface, then that's too bad for you, right? I think social media is a weird place to be. I do a lot of that meme stuff because it's just funny. That's who I am. I'm silly. I don't take myself very seriously. So a lot of our inside jokes, people like, I kind of stopped trying to do that on my own page because we had so many inside jokes that you would never understand, because I'm a part of another group, BCUG, BC Underground Hip Hop Forum, and it's just a lot of like funny stuff and like inside jokes that like normal people wouldn't get. So sometimes it goes onto my main feed, and then people are like, I don't get that. And it's like, okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm not super worried about it. Long story short.
Does BC still have a large hip hop?
Yeah, BC does, 100%.
How can we get that hip hop community to come to Kamloops? It's something that, so when we weren't, something that I was wanting to do was get into promoting, because I was doing events for the recovery community, and it was like, but we'd have little bits of like money like funding and stuff like that, so it wasn't a stressful thing on me. But I did a lot of the planning with other people, and we had some pretty good events like dances and stuff like that, and they were really successful. So I was thinking, man, I could do it for hip hop. But then it comes to money, right? The sound equipment. I think it's nice when we can get, the biggest thing is like, okay, we could probably afford to rent the equipment and the venue, but we really need to have a sound guy, you know? So I've been, a lot of shows in Canada I've been to where there's no sound guy, and it sounds so bad. And it's like, oh, it's like, it is what it is. Like, I'll still get up there and do my set and talk to the fans and talk to the other artists. But it's like, we need a sound. We need proper sound. You know what I mean? We need a venue, something like this. We need, and we need to have that because artists aren't going to come back. So I fear that maybe at some point there was artists that were coming up here and they weren't getting sound at all. Maybe that's the case. I don't know for sure. I'm just speculating. And I think Kamloops is a weird location. Everyone goes to Kelowna a lot. I notice like when other artists, even artists that are like way up above me, they never come to Kamloops. They go to Kelowna. So we'd have to drive to Kelowna to go. We went to drive to Kelowna to see La Coca Nostra, which was insane, and I thought that was really cool. But it was like Kamloops is like this weird. It's a weird location for people who don't really like to stop here. I've noticed like so I think. I don't know. I really don't know, to be honest, but I would like to be a part of the solution for sure. What do you need to get to the next level in your career, do you think?
Today's industry is so different. Like I don't know. I really don't know. I've spent the last couple of years obsessing over all these stuff like streams and followers, and I'm starting to come to the thing that now is like I'd rather have 2 real fans that I know personally that love my music, that want to be a part of what I'm doing, than having like 100 followers who like check one song out. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, it's a weird place for streaming. So streaming numbers is how a lot of people get noticed because they see they have big numbers. But a lot of people pay for fake streams. But then there's also people who are paying for companies that are supposed to be legit to get real streams, to get on real playlists. But then half the time those ones are botted, and then their music gets taken down, and then they look like they were paying for fake views. So it's like, I would like to grow my following and my numbers, but I want them to be authentic numbers. I want them to be real people. attached to my music, right? Because you know what I mean? And it's not all about numbers, right? It's really, and I've started doing merchandise, which was a big step for me. I've got a website coming up. So merchandise, right now all I have is like CDs and stickers, but I think they're really well done. And I think, you know, I think that'll be a good thing to have, almost just to have your name out there in the community and people to see it and stuff like that. But the biggest thing for me would be music videos. I've never really released music. I don't have any music videos. So in the last 5 years since I left treatment, my finances have been kind of up and down and just trying to find my way in life and with a career and stuff like that. And I've had some injuries and having to switch careers right now. So once I'm a little more stable financially, I'd like to invest in some music videos and do some really cool stuff and like have the community be involved and have it like be interactive in some way, because really that's what it's all about for me. I don't know if I'd ever even really want to be like solely making my finances from music. I don't know if that's the business I would want to be in. It's really just an art form for me right now. And I'm sure a lot of people say that when they're not really making it, but I think that's really how I feel. Like I just want to keep making better. I want to keep making better and better music until people just like it more and more, and I can attract real fans and stuff like that.
What's more important to you, that people know you as a hip hop artist or as someone that's gone through addiction and is recovered?
I think a hip hop artist, really. I think the whole my whole recovery thing. It's like the only reason why I ever bring that up is for other people if they're struggling. You know, like if you're watching this right now and you're struggling, you need to reach out to me and I'll show you how and share my experience with you, right? Because there's so many people. I'm just so sick of burying friends from the disease that I want to stand up and be like, you know, I'm a recovering addict. It's possible, right? This is where I was at, you know. So I think what do I want to be known for? I'd like to be known for being an artist, but also just being authentic to who I am, right? So like, I think every artist kind of is like, oh, it's this guy, he does this, right? Like, so like, yeah, it's just probably a little bit of both, really. But
what scares you the most about the future in Kamloops?
I don't really have any fears around about living in Kamloops. I think I would like to see. Yeah, I really don't know actually, because I don't pay a lot of attention to politics and a lot of attention to what's going on in the community that's like outside of my realm, right? You know, I think like if we're talking about recovery, I think, like I said before, you have to do the work. You know, like I have to be connected to recovery every day. So there's a lot of addiction out there. There's a lot of people dying, and I don't know how to help them unless they want to help themselves. So if they're getting more funding for mental health, if they're getting more funding for treatment, like I don't know if that's going to help. When I was younger and I wasn't ready to get help, they could have put me in a treatment center, they could have gave me money, they could have gave me therapy. If I wasn't ready to take the action to stay sober, it would have never took a hold, and I probably just would have kept doing what I was doing. It would have been a speed bump in my addiction, and I just would have gotten my way briefly, right? The only thing I can really tell about the community is that there's a lot of like homelessness, and I don't know much else about it. But I would like to see more people getting help if they wanted it, right?
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming by. It was a great pleasure to meet you, Slum. Yeah. And I wish you all the best in your career, and hopefully, yeah, we can get some more hip hop shows happening in Kamloops and getting a bigger community together. Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you very much, Aaron. This is awesome. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again.